I mean, should they play the games or just give Spurs the trophy now? That's the question that everyone is asking.
I think, Andy Brassell have a good view on this, but I think the English clubs have got a good chance, even Chelsea.
Let's bring Andy in. Hey, Andy.
Hey, how you guys?
Yeah, nice to chat. What do you make of this draw? There are some... I mean, when the last 16 is drawn, there's always some good games, right? But there are some really exciting ones, aren't there?
Yeah, there really are. And following on to you and Andy's conversation there, I think Tottenham have got to be really pleased with that draw right up until the point where they play Arsenal in the semi. I mean, that's the elephant in the room, I suppose, isn't it? From the Spurs perspective. And Spurs did have quite a clement fixture list in the league stage as well, which has helped them get into the top 8, taking nothing away from them taking care of business, of course. But I think the overwhelming feeling I have, as you say, Max, some really exciting fixtures, but on top of that, and the fact that you feel you're getting some of these fixtures maybe a little bit too early as well, I think it feels a really, really open competition. I don't think there's any team who you can say, right, they're definitely the massive favourites to win it, or even 2 or 3, really.
Yeah, I know it's unlike Arsenal fans to be really cocky, but in the office they were like celebrating like they'd won it. It's pathetic, isn't it?
Their route, just to be clear, their route is Leverkusen, and then it's Sporting or Bodo. And then you presume Barcelona out of Newcastle, Barcelona and Spurs.
I'm not sure about that.
You think Newcastle might be Barcelona? But anyway, look, it's not an unfriendly draw for Arsenal, is it?
Chelsea have played PSG and Barca in the last 6 months and thrashed both of them. I'm not saying that it's definitely going to happen, but Newcastle got a really good chance.
Andy, Arsenal will... It's favourable for us. It's a nice draw for Arsenal, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Leverkusen are in this sort of weird patterns ever since the Ten Hag disaster at the start of the season, where they had this massive exodus of players. So they've played with a new coach since the second game of the season. He's had no time to work with the players and a completely new set of players. So for them, it's about salvaging Champions League qualification in the league, which is a big thing for them. They're in the semi-finals of the German Cup as well. To me, last 16 in the Champions League feels about par for them, and that's what it will turn out being, because Arsenal are going to beat them, I think, in both legs. Sporting, I think, are an interesting shark in that half of the draw. They've recovered really well from losing Gyökeres, and they've been excellent, both at home and abroad. But I think the really interesting one is Paris-Chelsea. I find that really fascinating, because I was at PSG this week and they're just lacking that little bit of energy, as you would if you'd have had their fixture list over the past 18 months, I think.
Both teams
they just lack that extra gear to go to. Yeah, but I think if we look at it on paper, like, PSG have the better players, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. But it's just, can they find that extra level when they get to the last 16 in the quarterfinals? Because against a team they are much better than in Monaco, there were moments over the 2 ties. They were 2-0 down in the first leg in double quick time. And even though they were coasting in the second leg, they nearly chucked it away in the last 5 minutes.
That midfield.
Second leg is at the bridge if it doesn't get moved for police reasons. That's a big thing. Those European nights, I honestly do fancy Chelsea. As long as they don't get blown away in the first leg of the tie, I think they've got a chance.
Andy, I think your point about Newcastle-Barcelona is really interesting as well, because for me, I saw Newcastle play Barcelona early on when they were still coming to terms with losing Isak, and Barcelona got it going in the second half and won 2-1, but quite comfortably in the end. But Newcastle had loads of chances in the first half, and whoever plays Barcelona, you will get chances because of that high line they play. And the question is how you take them. Now, funnily enough, Anthony Gordon has been one of the total surprises of the Champions League, because I go and watch Newcastle a lot. At the start of the season, when they were putting him in the centre forward role, he looked like he was never going to score a goal.
That's true.
And then you've got to this point where he's just absolutely red hot in the Champions League. And I think playing with that sort of front three will get them over not having Isak, because with Isak in the team, a fully fit Isak, if he was still there, I think they would be really well set to cash in on Barcelona and that high line. Maybe not so much this season, unless, and Eddie Howe's done it a few times in Europe, go for that slightly more mobile front part of the team, and it can work quite well.
I was going to say, what about City and Real Madrid?
Yes, we haven't touched that yet.
Yeah, it's a big game, and you would imagine whoever wins that would fancy themselves to get to the final.
Well, I think you can say that in terms of what they are on paper. For me, Real Madrid are miles off winning the Champions League, absolutely miles off. And obviously, no one's really talked about the football against Benfica, because one, extremely unpleasant incident overshadowed both the games. But Real Madrid were very good in the first game, I thought, in Lisbon, and not so much in the second leg. And it follows sort of classic Real Madrid patterns in the Champions League, I suppose you could say, in terms of them doing the work on the road and then nearly throwing it away at the Bernabeu, which is quite an interesting pattern. But I don't know. I just don't really feel that they're a great Real Madrid side, or even a Real Madrid side who can dig in and hang on for dear life. They're not good enough defensively. I think that's a massive problem for them. If City can get it going in the front part of the pitch, City will win this tie. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And because of what City have got, I have doubts whether they're good enough defensively as well, a little bit like Real Madrid, to go ahead and win the competition. But the front part of the team, I mean, if you're City, you wouldn't swap that for anyone else in Europe, really, would you?
I mean, and the winners of that will probably play Bayern, right, in the semi-final. If Bayern,
which is huge,
which is massive, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. If I was going to pick a favourite out of the teams as they stand today, it would be Bayern. I think player for player, collectively, they're the best team in it. They're very well coached as well. I'm taking into account where PSG are at the moment and where Barcelona are at the moment as well, because I think going back to last year, everyone would have loved to see that. Every neutral would have loved to see that as a final. Of course, not going to happen. And I just wonder if PSG can find that extra level. That's the only real question for me. But otherwise, I think Bayern are nicely set.
Sure. I think Arsenal fans will say, didn't Arsenal beat Bayern earlier in this one?
I honestly think they did. I think Arsenal can win this.
Yeah, I think they can. But, I suppose it's that having never done it before will be a question. We haven't mentioned Liverpool. Galatasaray is a pretty favourable draw there. I mean, they're chaos, right? It will be fun.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're great to watch, Galatasaray, and they've matured a lot in the Champions League. They did really, really well to get through in the first place. Although it's funny, you expect them to do kind of better in the big games. They've found their niche in the big games. They've beaten Liverpool in Istanbul already. Of course, they've beaten Juventus there, and on their day, they're fantastic. Again, they've got incredible attacking weapons. Defensively, there's a bit of a question mark, even though they've learned to manage games better. But again, like Andy says with Chelsea, I think second leg at Anfield is absolutely huge. And as well, I think we've seen the fact that these teams have had a couple of midweeks off, which I think really, really helps. So it's not just the home advantage. It's the fact that you're going to have a little bit more in the tank. You're going to have time on the training pitch. All of that stuff is really valuable.
Yeah. Europa draw very, very quickly. Villa have got Lille and Forest have got Michelin.
Yeah, and I think if you're the real winners from this draw are Lyon, I think, because they're one of the other favourites for the competition. They won the league stage. They've got Endrick now as well, having come out of the league stage. And the fact that Forest and Villa are in one half of the draw, I mean, if you're Lyon, you're delighted with that, I think, because one of the big teams is going to knock one of the other ones off, and the fact that you've got Stuttgart and Porto in that half of the draw is quite helpful as well. Look, I know Forest came a cropper against Midtjylland, and I was at Forest last night, and they were poor, really. They're thinking about the Brighton game. They rotated heavily. They didn't really know whether to stick or twist. The rotation players are a bit out of nick, but I still think they're a danger in this competition. And Lille have started to find a little bit of form again recently. I think it's a more difficult tie for Villa than it is for Forest.
Good stuff, Andy. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
European football expert Andy Brassell, part of the Trans-Europe Express, of course, with Danny Kelly on a Sunday night. David says, the start of today's programme is in my top 10 most random non-sporting starts. How dare you? The Butter Olympics is it's heavily sporting. I have a WhatsApp group that rates each 1 o'clock start of the show, and there is potential for this to secure a Champions League place on the group chat. Love it, says Denchi. Thank you, Denchi.
I normally do quite a bit on last night's game, but there wasn't much to say. I did watch the second half of Palace, and
so I was out with Vernon Kay, so I couldn't be bothered.
Chris Richards' bandage caused him to miss the header, which I read as Cliff Richards' bandage.
I think, things have gone wrong at Palace, and Glasner desperately trying to get the sack now by playing Cliff Richard at centre-half. And that is a real sign that he wants out, isn't it?
Brennan Johnson looked good when he came on. They're very sharp. Brennan Johnson, that's good news for Wales.
Yeah, it is. He hasn't started brilliantly for Palace. Poor him, going from bin fire to bin fire. Anyway, Kieran Maguire will join us in just a second. Amorim got 16 million. Chelsea post record losses. There's Premflix as well.
355 million.
It's all right for you. It's all right for you because you get the mega bucks here, Andy. The rail replacement bus services of this station, we do this for pittance.